Hello, my name's Dennis Fancett and I'm a Giving Ministry Advisor with the Diocese of Newcastle. And this talk is about giving because we're created in the image of our generous God. Now, many years ago, when our two daughters were both teenagers, I can remember my older daughter trying to negotiate some issue with my wife. I can't really remember what the issue was now. Maybe it was to do with how late she could stay out or what she could wear to a party. But my wife was having none of it. She was putting her foot down. But my daughter thought, as I'm sure all teenagers do, that we were just old fogies, out of touch, not living in the real world of what's acceptable. And in desperation, the conversation not going her way at all, my daughter turned to my wife and she said, "Mum, you're such a freak." And then, exhausted with talking to my good wife, she tried her hand with me and she asked me what my opinion on the matter was. Well, as I said, I can't actually even remember what the issue was, but I did remember at the time that it was really important that I backed my wife up. So I said exactly what she had said, and that was my answer too. So then my daughter said, "Dad, you're such a freak." To which my response was, "Hold on, Jenny. If Mum's a freak and if I'm a freak, then what do you think that makes you?" And there was a short pause whilst the penny dropped, and then our daughter cried out, aghast, "Oh no, I must be a freak as well." Well, it's an amusing story, I trust. Certainly it is in our family. But it has a serious edge to it because you see, you, me, we're all created in the image of a generous God. And because God is so overwhelmingly generous, and because we're created in his likeness, well, what do you think that makes us? Now, the theologian Bishop Tom Wright, and indeed other theologians before him, use an interesting phrase to help us understand the nature of Jesus as Son of God. Yes, Jesus is the Son of God, we know that, and that is absolute. But what does it actually mean in practice? Bishop Tom suggests it might help us understand more deeply, and it certainly has done for me, if we consider the phrase, "chip off the old block." It's an expression, it's an idiom of the English language that is used to refer to someone who resembles one or both parents, either physically or in personality traits. It comes from being able to tell the original larger piece of wood or stone from which a smaller piece has been cut because it has the same grain, the same texture, and it fits back into the original perfectly. So we might say, I knew he or she was going to do that because they're just a chip off the old block. Or I can predict how this person will behave because they're a chip off the old block, meaning that they were just like their Father. And our Father in heaven is generous. Not just any old generous. He is overwhelmingly and comprehensively generous. And he creates us in his own image. And he calls us to be like him, reflecting his personality, his character, his values, and his outlook. Now, for all of us, whether we give or not must always be our own choice. No one should ever force us or pressurize us. We should never, ever feel manipulated or coerced. Giving is about generosity. If my wife gave me a present and said, "Well, I had to, it's your birthday, it comes around every year," I don't know if I'd feel that appreciative. But if she gives me a present and says, "I love you," that's different, yes. She may say it every year and hopefully plenty of times in between as well. But it deepens the relationship between us. However, if we count ourselves out of giving, if we say giving is not for me or it's not appropriate for my circumstances, then there is the very real risk that we deny ourselves the opportunity to understand that very important part of God's character and our calling as people created in his image. I also believe that when we discover the spirit of generosity within us, a little starts to go a long way. Now, let's be careful here. I don't want to over-push this. It's something each of us must discover for ourselves, not to be promised in advance and kind of rely on, only to find that in this particular instance, God has moved in another of his mysterious ways. But whether it's like the widow who poured out her oil for Elijah, or the boy who shared his 5 loaves with Jesus, or Corrie ten Boom and her sister sharing a small vial of vitamin drops with other prisoners in a concentration camp during the Second World War, each found that what they gave just never ran out. And there are doubtless many other examples across our churches too, when people have given in tears and discovered a little more deeply something of the grace of Jesus. So let's not exclude ourselves from the joy of discovering we are created in the image of a generous God. Thank you so much for listening to this short video. God bless you.